Something strange is happening in Hollywood, and the silence is louder than any headline. Ryan Reynolds, once the unshakable fan favorite, the witty voice of a generation, and the poster boy for marketable charm, is now nowhere to be found, and not just in a figurative sense. His name is missing from Disney promotions, from press tours, from the major events that used to showcase him front and center. It is as if the studio that once built entire campaigns around him has suddenly decided to move on, and fans are noticing the absence is not subtle, it is strategic. And it is raising serious questions about what is really going on behind the scenes. While Reynolds remains quiet, while Disney pretends nothing has changed, a completely different battle is erupting online, one that could change the way Hollywood handles criticism. Forever content creators who have spoken out, analyzed court documents, and publicly discussed the legal controversies surrounding Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni are being pulled into courtrooms with subpoenas aimed squarely at silencing them. But instead of retreating, they are fighting back and turning the tables by exposing what they believe to be coordinated intimidation efforts from some of the most powerful names in the industry. Suddenly, this is not just about one celebrity couple or one defamation case. It is about whether the public has the right to speak, to comment, to analyze, and to question the stories they are being sold. And right in the middle of it all stands Ryan Reynolds. His silence, once a clever brand move, now feels like a glaring absence. His charm now overshadowed by the mounting legal pressure surrounding the people closest to him, and his future with Disney growing more uncertain with every passing day. This is no longer just entertainment. This is a reckoning unfolding in real time. Something truly seismic is happening in Hollywood, and the cracks are finally beginning to show. Ryan Reynolds, once Disney's golden boy and a public relations darling of the entertainment world, is now facing a thunderous silence from the very studio that once championed him. That silence, it speaks volumes. The whispers behind closed doors, the strategic omissions from press announcements, and the unmistakable absence of his name from certain Disney-led initiatives have sparked a frenzy of speculation and outrage. But that's not all. At the exact same time, an even deeper and more dangerous story is brewing. Content creators, those who dare to speak, expose, and analyze the escalating scandals involving Reynolds and Blake Lively, are now fighting back in court. This isn't a random coincidence. It feels like a pattern, it feels like a strategy, and now it's unraveling publicly. For months, the entertainment industry has watched nervously as the legal drama between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni escalated into a courtroom showdown with far-reaching implications. What started as a defamation case spiraled into a revelation-laden public battle filled with shocking depositions, leaked messages, and industry backlash. And through it all, Ryan Reynolds was caught in the undertow, his image gradually fraying at the edges. While he's not the central figure in the lawsuit, his proximity to Blake Lively and recent legal developments around the exposure of certain influencer interactions has dragged his name into the headlines in ways his PR team surely did not anticipate. Now Disney, a studio known for its tightly controlled brand image and no-tolerance policy for ongoing scandals, is quietly stepping away. The message is subtle but unmistakable: a strategic snub, a withdrawal of visible support, a distancing that speaks to something deeper than just business. Meanwhile, content creators are rising, facing subpoenas, legal threats, and coordinated pushback from celebrity legal teams. These digital voices have said enough. They're organizing, they're pushing back in court. Some are filing motions, others are calling for protections, and a few are going fully public, detailing the intimidation tactics they say they've faced just for doing what the internet does best: ask questions, analyze public data, and comment. This is the story of Hollywood's changing power dynamic, where studios are walking a fine line, celebrities are scrambling to control narratives, and independent voices are refusing to back down. And it all begins with a cold, calculated snub from Disney and a boiling hot courtroom battle that could change how public figures interact with the internet forever. Let's break it all down. When Ryan Reynolds first teamed up with Disney through their acquisition of 20th Century Fox, it seemed like a match made in franchise heaven. Deadpool became one of the few rated R successes embraced under Disney's larger umbrella. Albeit cautiously, Reynolds' charisma, marketability, and massive fanbase made him a corporate asset. But corporate assets are only valuable when they aren't liabilities, and that's where things appear to have shifted. Insiders are now suggesting that Disney executives are reevaluating Reynolds' role in upcoming projects. One particular insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, stated that a key decision was made earlier this year not to anchor any major marketing campaigns around Reynolds in 2025. This was seen as odd at first, but in hindsight it matches a broader pattern. Reynolds was noticeably absent from a recent investor event that heavily showcased upcoming Marvel-related content. His Deadpool 3 appearance was downplayed, and his participation in certain international Disney Plus promotional events was reportedly put on hold. Disney has not issued any formal statements, but media analysts are saying this looks like a quiet distancing maneuver. They're not canceling him yet, but they're certainly not elevating him either, and that's where the real intrigue begins. Because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This apparent snub comes as the controversy surrounding Reynolds' wife Blake Lively has reached fever pitch, with the defamation case against her gaining national attention, and the legal filings dragging more high-profile names into the spotlight. Disney, famous for keeping its image pristine, may have decided to step back while the dust settles, or worse, they've already seen what's coming and want no part in it. One of the most alarming developments in recent weeks has been the escalation of legal tactics aimed at content creators. Several prominent commentators, some with legal backgrounds, others with large social media platforms, have received subpoenas related to their coverage of the lively Baldoni legal drama. These subpoenas request communications drafts and internal notes surrounding their videos and posts. While these creators are not being accused of wrongdoing, the legal burden and intimidation factor is unmistakable. One anonymous creator said in a private live stream, "We're being targeted not because we lied, but because we spoke too close to the truth." That sentiment is spreading, and now the fight is becoming formalized. Multiple content creators are banding together, hiring legal representation and challenging the subpoenas in court. Their goal: to protect journalistic freedom, commentary rights, and to stop what they're calling targeted harassment disguised as litigation. In short, they're not backing down. Their argument is simple: everything they've said is based on publicly available information. From court filings to verified media reports, their content is commentary and analysis fully within the bounds of free expression. But what alarms them is the apparent coordination. Subpoenas filed within days of each other, all requesting eerily similar materials and reportedly backed by legal teams linked to high-profile celebrity clients. The speculation is growing that Ryan Reynolds may be indirectly connected to some of these actions, not as a filer himself, but as someone whose team might be aware of or advising on the broader strategy. Whether that's true or not, the public perception is beginning to shift, because if Disney is distancing itself from Reynolds, just as this pressure campaign against content creators intensifies, people are asking, is there more to the story? Another wrinkle to this situation is the timing. Content creators started speaking out around the same time that court documents revealed text message threads involving high-profile Hollywood insiders, texts that allegedly contradict earlier public statements from Blake Lively and raise serious questions about what exactly happened behind the scenes. Many of these creators were among the first to connect the dots, analyzing the inconsistencies and calling out what they saw as clear red flags. So when the subpoenas came, it didn't feel random. It felt like retaliation, and now the public is watching as this story morphs from celebrity courtroom drama into something much larger, a cultural showdown between elite legal teams and everyday digital voices who refuse to be silenced. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds' silence grows more deafening by the day. Gone are the playful Instagram stories, the witty self-deprecating jokes about headlines, the clever PR stunts that usually allow him to stay one step ahead of the media in their place. Nothing, no acknowledgement of the subpoena firestorm, no reference to Disney's shifting tone, no comment on the legal whirlwind surrounding his wife. And maybe that silence is strategy, maybe it's caution, but too many it's starting to look like avoidance. Public opinion is shifting. Online creators are rallying together under hashtags like Protect Commentary and Free Speech Matters. Twitter threads are dissecting every move, while YouTube videos are tracking the ongoing court motions like episodes of a dramatic legal series. This isn't just content anymore, it's resistance. And Ryan Reynolds, whether he wants to be or not, has becoming part of the narrative. The silence from Disney is no longer being ignored by fans, industry watchers, and media outlets across the board. The move feels intentional, calculated, and above all revealing. As one former Disney executive put it off the record, Disney doesn't make these decisions lightly. They don't ghost their top stars unless something significant has changed. And right now, everything is changing for Ryan Reynolds in the court of public opinion. His carefully managed image as the witty, lovable, unproblematic superstar is beginning to crack, not because of one scandal, but because of how many red flags are piling up and how little he is doing to address them. And as fans dig deeper into the situation, they're not liking what they're finding. The content creators at the center of this story are not fringe conspiracy theorists. They are lawyers, journalists, pop culture analysts, and former entertainment insiders who have spent years building credibility. Their videos are detailed, their commentary is sourced, and their research is backed by court filings, public records, and first-hand accounts. These are not people making wild claims, they are drawing reasoned conclusions based on publicly available data, and yet they are being dragged into legal battles that many see as an effort to scare them into silence. Subpoenas are being served, demands for email records, communication logs, and even unpublished content drafts are being issued. And it's not just one or two creators. This is becoming a trend, and the effect is chilling. The message it sends is clear: if you talk about the wrong people, if you analyze the wrong documents, if you connect the wrong dots, you could be next. And yet, instead of backing down the response from the content creator community has been defiant. In some cases, creators are lawyering up, filing motions to quash subpoenas and calling out what they see as a misuse of legal process. To suppress criticism, they're turning the cameras around and documenting every step of their legal journey, turning their defense into content and their content into a movement. And audiences are responding. The viewership for these creators is skyrocketing. Their legal fund donations are surging, and their subscribers are rallying to defend them. This is no longer just about celebrity drama. This is a much bigger question about the limits of free speech in the digital age, and whether powerful individuals can weaponize the legal system to suppress uncomfortable truths. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively might not be the ones signing the subpoenas, but their names are all over the context, and that alone is raising eyebrows. Because if these actions are truly about protecting reputations, why go after the people analyzing public court documents? Why not issue statements, clarify facts, or provide transparency? Instead, what we see is silence on one side and intimidation on the other. And that imbalance is exactly why the internet is fighting back. Disney too is in a tough spot, because while the studio remains one of the most powerful in the world, it is also deeply aware of its brand, and that brand does not coexist comfortably with ongoing legal drama or internet movements against censorship. When the decision makers at Disney notice the kind of backlash content creators are generating, when they see hashtags about free speech, when they see that their talent is associated with legal intimidation, they take notice, and the safest move for them is distance, strategic silence, maybe even quiet exit strategies. Insiders say some Disney divisions have already halted plans to expand projects with Reynolds indefinitely. And while nothing is official, fans are picking up on the signs: no merchandise campaigns, no new Disney Plus features, no spotlight appearances. And the most obvious sign of all, a total absence of his name in upcoming franchise roadmaps. What's worse is that Reynolds seems caught in a trap of his own making. He can't come forward without bringing attention to the creators has supposedly trying to silence. And he can't stay silent without appearing complicit, so has stuck. And that stuckness is growing more visible by the day. Meanwhile, the creators has facing off against are gaining momentum. They're forming a loose but powerful network, cross-promoting each other's content, sharing legal resources, and even consulting with First Amendment lawyers to push for legislative reform. This is unprecedented. Never before has a group of digital creators mounted such a coordinated response to a wave of legal pressure. And their message is simple: if you try to silence us, we will only get louder. Because this is no longer just about celebrities, this is about the right to speak, to analyze, to comment, to question public behavior and public records. And if that right is taken away, even once, it sets a precedent that could affect every voice online. And that is why this moment is so pivotal. What started as whispers about a defamation case has now become a full-blown crisis of credibility for the people involved and the institutions surrounding them, and no one is feeling that shift more than Ryan Reynolds. His image, once carefully insulated by humor, charm, and positive press, is now under scrutiny. And in the world of celebrity branding, scrutiny is poison, because image is everything, and right now that image is fracturing quietly but unmistakably. And the more he avoids addressing the questions, the louder those questions become. And Disney is not in the business of answering questions for its stars. It expects its stars to stay clean, presentable, and uncontroversial, and when they don, it moves on. It has done it before, and it will do it again. So the question now is not whether Disney has snubbed Ryan Reynolds. The question is whether that snub is permanent, and what that means for the rest of his career. If the studio that made him a mainstream icon is no longer backing him, who will? And how long can he navigate this storm in silence, while the people on the other side of the courtroom and the other side of the screen keep raising their voices louder and louder by the day? The legal landscape around this entire situation is becoming more complex by the hour, and it's not just content creators who are noticing. Even legal scholars are beginning to chime in, pointing out that the wave of subpoenas being sent to independent commentators appears to be skirting dangerously close to abuse of process. In theory, subpoenas are tools used to gather relevant evidence in a legal dispute, but in practice, they can also be used to overwhelm, intimidate, and discourage critics, especially when those critics are working independently without corporate legal backing. And that's exactly what seems to be happening now. with content creators being asked to hand over emails, private drafts, social media DMs, and more, all because they dare to comment on court cases involving high-profile celebrities. The question at the heart of this controversy is one that cuts across legal and ethical lines. Where does commentary end and defamation begin, and more importantly, who gets to decide? The answer is supposed to be the courts based on the law, but when the courts themselves are being leveraged to suppress commentary, the line starts to blur. The chilling effect is already here. Some smaller creators have begun deleting videos. Others are quietly stepping away from coverage entirely, and yet the most prominent voices remain firm. They argue that their content is protected commentary rooted in facts and public records, and if that makes celebrities uncomfortable, so be it. They are not responsible for the facts, only for pointing them out, and the more people they reach, the more undeniable those facts become. And in a digital world driven by transparency, receipts, and timeline, silence is not a good look. Ryan Reynolds knows this, or at least he should. After all, his brand is built on transparency, or at least the illusion of it. He has built a career by playing the guy who always says what everyone else is thinking, who leans into the jokes, who never takes himself too seriously. But now the jokes are gone, and so is the relatability, because when real accountability came knocking, Reynolds said nothing and did nothing, and audiences have noticed. They are asking why the man who loves a good viral moment is completely absent from the conversation around his wife's legal battle. They are wondering why a man who regularly promotes mental health awareness has had nothing to say about the emotional toll creators are facing in court battles, triggered by legal pressure from circles close to him, and they are demanding answers. The power of celebrity once relied on mystery, on distance, but not anymore. Now fans expect engagement, clarity, accountability, and when that is missing, they respond with suspicion, distrust, and eventually disengagement. And Disney knows this better than anyone. The House of Mouse has survived for decades, not because it is infallible, but because it knows how to read the cultural weather, and right now the weather is stormy. A new generation of fans does not care about studio loyalty or actor prestige. They care about honesty, they care about fairness, and they care about seeing powerful people play by the same rules as everyone else. And when they don't, the backlash is swift. Disney is watching that backlash unfold in real time. The fan forums, the comment sections, the viral TikToks are full of speculation, analysis, and yes, criticism of how Reynolds has handled this moment, or rather how he has avoided handling it entirely. And the studio is making moves accordingly, quietly, discreetly, but firmly. It is pausing deals, holding back endorsements, scrubbing future timelines of projects that might bring unwanted attention or controversy. And in Hollywood, that kind of silence is never accidental. It is a signal, it is a shift. And once that shift begins, it rarely reverses. Meanwhile, the creators at the center of the storm are becoming unlikely heroes in a modern David and Goliath battle. They are rallying public support not with money or fame, but with receipts, timelines, and the one thing powerful institutions fear the most: narrative control. Because in today's media landscape, narrative is everything. And for the first time in a long time, that narrative is not being written by studio executives or publicists. It is being shaped by creators, journalists, and independent analysts who have nothing to lose and everything to say, and what they are saying is being heard louder than ever before across platforms, across continents, and across industries. What started as a legal battle is becoming a cultural moment, a referendum on power, truth, and the right to speak freely about the people and systems that shape public life. Ryan Reynolds may still believe that his silence will protect him, that this moment will pass, that the internet will move on, but more and more it seems like that silence is becoming the story. Because when you refuse to engage with the truth, when you ignore the very real struggles people are facing in the wake of your proximity to power, you don't look cautious, you look complicit. And the internet knows the difference, just as Disney does, just as fans do, and just as the courtroom is beginning to recognize. This battle is not about gossip. It is not about takedowns. It is about transparency. And if Reynolds and his team cannot adapt to that reality, they will be left behind, not by studios, not by deals, but by the very audience that made them relevant in the first place. The momentum is shifting, the creators are organizing, and the silence is only growing more deafening as the world watches and waits to see what happens next. As the story unfolds, what becomes clear is that the stakes are much higher than anyone initially realized. This is no longer just a reputational battle for Ryan Reynolds or a legal struggle for Blake Lively. This is a clash between old Hollywood power structures and the new wave of digital accountability, where influence is no longer monopolized by studio execs or controlled press tours, but shared by a generation of creators who are not afraid to challenge narratives and bring forward inconvenient truths. And this shift is unsettling for those who have long operated behind the curtain. What once took months of coordinated press releases and carefully timed interviews can now be undone in hours by a single video that goes viral, a single tweet with the right receipts, or a live stream that presents public court documents in a way that the mainstream media refuses to. And for Reynolds, who has always mastered the art of digital branding, this disruption should be familiar territory, except this time he is on the wrong side of it. And the irony is inescapable. The same platforms that helped build his stardom are now filled with voices asking why he has chosen to remain silent. As content creators face court orders for covering matters of public record, the same internet that once cheered his every campaign is now calling for clarity, transparency, and above all, responsibility. Yet instead of responding, Reynolds continues to retreat, and with each day that passes without acknowledgement or accountability, the situation worsens. More and more fans are turning skeptical. Some are revisiting old interviews looking for signs of image management. Others are comparing his silence to how other public figures have handled similar crises, and the comparison is not flattering, because when the public sees legal pressure being used against creators and silence from the celebrities adjacent to it, they draw their own conclusions. And those conclusions can be devastating. The trust that once made Reynolds untouchable is beginning to erode, not through scandal but through omission. And in Hollywood, that erosion is often irreversible. Meanwhile, the legal fight is intensifying. Motions are being filed, responses are being drafted, and court dates are being scheduled. And every new document only adds fuel to the fire, because the more people dig, the more inconsistencies they uncover, and the more those inconsistencies are discussed, the harder it becomes to shut down the conversation. Attempts to intimidate or discredit creators are only emboldening them and making their audiences even more loyal, because people can sense when something is being hidden. And in the age of digital empowerment, they refuse to be gaslighted or bullied into silence. This is the new reality, and it is one that Hollywood is struggling to adapt to. For years, the industry operated on gatekeeping, controlling the flow of information and maintaining a polished image for its stars, but those gates are now wide open, and the information is flowing faster than ever. And no matter how hard some try to dam the river, it cannot be stopped. The creators leading the charge are not just defending themselves, they are creating a blueprint for how to respond when powerful interests attempt to silence critical commentary. They are forming alliances, consulting with legal experts, and using every tool at their disposal to push back, and it is working. Public support is on their side, the legal community is taking notice, and media outlets are beginning to shift their tone. This is no longer about whether a single creator crossed a line. This is about whether a line is being redrawn to protect those in power at the expense of public discourse. And if that is allowed to happen, it sets a precedent that could affect not just commentary on celebrities, but investigative journalism, political critique, and any form of public accountability in the digital age. So when fans ask why Disney is backing away from Reynolds, the answer may be simpler than it appears. It is not about loyalty, it is about risk assessment. Disney is in the business of minimizing controversy and maximizing profit. And right now, the risk of being associated with a star whose silence is being interpreted as complicity is just too high. It is not personal, it is strategic, and Reynolds, whether he acknowledges it or not, is becoming a liability. And in a world where stars are made and unmade by public perception, that kind of liability is deadly. Disney has weathered many storms before, but it does so by making swift, clean breaks, not messy, drawn-out negotiations. If Reynolds continues on this path without addressing the very real concerns being raised around him, he may find himself sidelined, not just temporarily but permanently. And no amount of clever advertising or charming interviews will undo the damage of lost trust. Once the audience moves on, they rarely look back, and the creators who are currently being dragged into court may end up defining the new rules of engagement for public figures in the process. By refusing to back down, they are showing that the internet cannot be controlled, only navigated, and those who try to silence it may end up silencing themselves in the long run. As the dust continues to swirl around Ryan Reynolds, Disney, and the growing legal battles involving content creators, one thing is becoming crystal clear: the rules of fame have changed forever. Silence is no longer a shield, charm is no longer enough, and public perception can shift in an instant. Reynolds, once seen as untouchable, now finds himself walking a tightrope between brand loyalty and public accountability. With every day that passes without a response, the questions only grow louder, and the internet only grows bolder. Content creators are no longer fringe voices. They are now cultural forces shaping the conversation and calling out hypocrisy in real time. And when they are targeted, when legal tools are used to pressure and intimidate them, the public pays attention, because in this new media era, transparency is power, and any attempt to obscure it is met with resistance. Disney knows this all too well, and its quiet retreat from Reynolds may be the studio's way of protecting itself from the storm ahead. But for Reynolds, the road back to public trust will not be paved by clever tweets or well-timed cameos. It will require something far more rare in Hollywood: accountability. And until that happens, the silence will continue to echo louder than any statement. Could the content creators fighting back in court have drawn a line in the sand? They are not just defending their channels, they are defending a principle: the right to speak, the right to question, and the right to hold powerful people accountable. And in doing so, they are rewriting the balance of power in entertainment. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a much larger conversation, and the world is watching to see who has the courage to speak, who has the strength to listen, and who disappears into the silence.